for its specific purpose, but you can outgrow different tools, and different tools have different purposes. So if we take an analogy like software development, let's say it's building a house. If you're going to build a shed in your backyard, you might use a hammer and nails. Think of that, let's say, as your MVP. If you're now going to scale that out into an enterprise application with millions of users, so think of that as, let's say, a high-rise building downtown, you're not building your high-rise building downtown with hammer and nails.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. Today I've got David with Aloa. He helps businesses get software developed, startups, and I'm sure businesses of all different sizes. He helps people engage with United States companies, engage with offshore developing companies, and they vet these companies out. And super excited to have David on the show. How are you doing today, David?
Doing great. Happy to be here, chat with you for a bit.
Thank you for joining us on the show today. I know you're a busy guy. You've got lots of things going on. International business is a lot of fun. Before we jump into what is Aloa, can you tell us a little bit about you, about your upbringing? What is it that makes you an entrepreneur or a business owner? Like, what gives you that spirit and fire?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. I always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, so to speak. Ever starting off, my dad would, always talk to me about stories of being in kindergarten and doing lemonade stands and trying to raise the prices on people for pretzels because I wanted to make more money and all that stuff. And it just kind of followed me throughout middle school, started creating like a duct tape wallet business. And then high school, started a roommate searching app for incoming college students. And that was, I would say, like kind of my first real experience in entrepreneurship. It crashed and burned, but learned a ton, and definitely my first real, true experience in entrepreneurship, right? And throughout all that, though, it's just fun for me. The way I kind of describe it is, it feels like I'm playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, but in real life. And so it's just like every day I'm just like playing a game of figuring out how I can build something. And when I was in university, I actually started to go and look into like consulting and more of the corporate route. Did an internship in that, and I was just super depressed. Did not enjoy it. Was not waking up happy. Thankfully, did not get a job offer to anywhere that I applied, and that was kind of my pick of, okay, go back to what you're passionate about, and do something that you actually like doing. And so that was my blessing in disguise, and got me back into following my passion and just enjoying building stuff. And then got together with my Aloa co-founders, and here we are today. Jumped into it out of college, and still running with it.
Wonderful. Congratulations. For a lot of people get into that depressed state and they really struggle on getting out of it. And congratulations for finding the energy and the spirit to lift yourself up and overcome that. I know it's not an easy thing to do. So congratulations.
For sure.
So what is Aloa? What is it that you and your team do?
Yeah, so Aloa is a network of highly vetted software agencies around the world, backed by our own proprietary tools and processes to make software outsourcing predictable. So when you think of software outsourcing and software development, it kind of jolts people because it doesn't have the best reputation, and people think of horror stories and losing money and all of those things. And they think of that for a right reason. There's a lot of bad stories out there, and a lot of things go wrong. And we got into the space actually because we ourselves were looking to expand our development team, tried outsourcing, went horribly wrong, tried it again, went horribly wrong. And that was kind of the light bulb for us, as a technical team. If we aren't even able to figure out how to do this predictably, how is anyone else who isn't technical, someone who doesn't have that experience of knowing the variables to look for and things like that? And so we really started obsessing over outsourcing and really understanding how to make international working relationships more efficient, specifically through the lens of software development. And so the way our process works, we vetted through thousands of firms around the world. We work with agencies and not freelancers. Agencies tend to give clients the breadth of skill set, allows them to scale up, scale down, and tend to be more relationship focused. We've accepted about 12 agencies within our network. And so that's who we'll look towards when we meet a new client. Someone on Aloa side, an account executive, gets to know that client. We'll conduct a placement assessment, get to know them, specific variables, pair them up with the right development team who's going to make the most sense for them and what they need. And then at the beginning of that relationship, we're going to build out custom development strategies to which we'll conduct performance reviews every other week on the development team, deliver those reports. That way there's unparalleled transparency and everyone can kind of see what's going on. But also to ensure that we're getting ahead of any habits rather than letting them build up. Typically with software, it's not the code quality that leads to the problem. It's the little habits that compound over time that end up leading to the big issue, things that weren't caught that could have been.
Right.
And then we have different tools, project management tool, payment platform, things to make the relationship more seamless. That way anyone, even a non-technical, even a CTO who has 27 other in-house developers that they need to manage, can seamlessly, successfully outsource their software development in a predictable manner, still achieve that cost efficiency without having to sacrifice the quality.
Wonderful. That is a big challenge. And I know today, so many things are changing in the software world. I think
totally.
I've been in the software world since 1999. Probably even before that with Lotus Notes in the 95, 6 and 7, right? And I don't think that there's been bigger jumps in technology that I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen in late 22, early 23. So I think the world ahead of us is it's going to be a wild ride, and we're going to need a lot of orchestrators, putting software pieces together, and that skill set seems to be, with the no code solutions being put out into place, I see some pretty big disasters happening over the next 5 and 10 years. And software is going to have to be, my opinion on no code solutions is it's great for MVPs, but it's, once you launch your business, who wants Bubble to own their software? 100% of their business, right? That's a dangerous thing. So, what are you telling these guys? And if they have an MVP that's up and running and now they're making some money, when should they take that out of the no code solution and put it into a coded solution that they actually now own the intellectual property that they've created?
Totally. It's a great question and one that most startups in their life cycle are going to face. Ultimately, I think
if they're going to get to the next step, they're going to face it.
Yeah. So, I think in first answering that question, especially for some of the non-technical listeners, want to take zoom out a little bit and just the philosophy in that what people commonly get wrong when they think about no code and just generally think about outsourcing, whatever it is, software development, people view these as all-in-one solutions when they should really be looked at as tools, not necessarily black box solutions. You use a tool for its specific purpose, but you can outgrow different tools, and different tools have different purposes. So if we take an analogy like software development, let's say it's building a house. If you're going to build a shed in your backyard, you might use a hammer and nails. Think of that, let's say, as your MVP. If you're now going to scale that out into an enterprise application with millions of users, so think of that as, let's say, a high-rise building downtown, you're not building your high-rise building downtown with hammer and nails, right? You have different technology and infrastructure that's supportive of what you need at that time. And so that's really how to first think about it, is recognizing that you need to understand the tools that are in your tool belt and how to leverage those tools efficiently to successfully take each step. And so as a company, no code is an incredible tool for getting your business off the ground, right? It gives you an opportunity to unbelievably quickly spin something up that does what you need it to do, and help you validate your concept. Now, once you hit a certain point, and then that kind of goes back to the question, well, what's that inflection point? The downsides of no code is that you don't own your own assets, right? You don't own that code base. You can't customize it to exactly what you need. You're restricted to whatever the limitations are of that no code tool. And most importantly, it's out of your control. So if that no code tool decides to implement some policy, some restriction, whatever it is, that's your business.
Right.
And so once you've validated your business, once you've validated your user traction, you're starting to make money, people are using your product, you're seeing kind of the hints of product market fit. Well, that's when you then need to think, okay, how do I need to adapt my business to the growth that I want to have? And if you want to continue growing and scaling, you're going to need to upgrade your system to support that scale, making it more customized, making it more scalable,
Right.
owning all of those assets so you can actually do whatever you need to do with it, not be bound by the limitations of a third party. And so that's really kind of where you need to think about that inflection point and understanding the costs that are associated with that. And so typically that'll come once you have paying customers, once you've established the business model and you're at that point where you're no longer in survival mode and you're now thinking about, okay, how do I now take this to scale to Viva?
Right. I also think that, in business, you've got your product market fit. You want to be able to defend your position in the marketplace always. And if somebody can duplicate exactly what you're doing in a couple of hours with a WYSIWYG, what you see, what you get kind of editor, do you really have the runway that you need, or somebody's going to be right on your tails, right? All the time. So
totally,
competition,
you don't have a moat.
Right. The competition pull on that early adoption is just littered, right? When MailChimp came out, there was thousands of MailChimps, right? When Facebook came out, there were hundreds of different social networks all at the same time hitting the market, right? And it was the ones that could differentiate themselves with new unique features, right? If Facebook was built on a no-code solution, when Twitter came out with Spaces and Clubhouse came out, Facebook wouldn't be able to compete with them, right? They wouldn't be able to get Reels in there really quickly. They would have to wait for their no-code solution to add those features. So you just 100%.
Exactly.
You're going to always be behind the most current bleeding edge trends, right? And you can't defend the position. So I think one of my favorites was one day Google sent out an email that says, "Hey guys, we just bought YouTube. We're no longer going to do Google Video. It's gone. You have X amount of days to get rid of all your video storage," right? And it's not yours. You don't control it. It's a scary thing. So, thank you for the answer. I appreciate that perspective on the no code. So you're saying as soon as they find a product market fit is when they need to start at least thinking about moving out of no code into a coded solution.
Yeah, just think about it, right? There's no one right answer. And I think that's also an issue that you'll typically find in this space is you have so many people who advocate on this is the black and white thing that you need to do. This is the answer to all questions. Every scenario is different. So there is no one right answer to listen to. And what you need to just do is you need to think and you need to be a critical thinker and really analyze it for yourself and recognize that, okay, understand what the drawbacks and limitations are of a no-code tool. And once you're at the point of making revenue, establish customers, thinking about how you take your business to that next level, you need to think about what those limitations are and figure out for yourself, are those limitations going to prevent you from taking it to the next level? Most cases, probably going to be yes, but I know people who
you got a good runway there.
And are
Right, you got a good runway. Exactly. I think you can use a no-code solution and get a company up to $250,000, $500,000, even $2 to $3 million maybe before you start really running into problems. If you really have something unique and special, I love them for giant data sets. Right, I've got this giant data set and I just display it to something, and I really don't care. I can rewrite the PHP pretty quickly if I had to. Right, but I'm just going to display a pretty data set to somebody. I think no-code solutions are good for that kind of stuff, but for building products you're going to build a company on, I think it's a bad idea. So other than MVPs. I love them for that. Right? Does this work?
They're amazing.
Will somebody buy this if I make it? Right? Which is the giant question that we all have. So you had a funny story that you told me before we jumped on here, and I had a trouble saying your name, Aloa, right? It took me a little bit to get that one under my belt. And you have a great story about how you guys came up with this name, and I love it. Can you share that with the guests today?
Yeah, definitely. So one of my co-founders, he was in Hawaii with his cousin. This was 5-6 years ago. We started Aloa while we were in college, and so we were just students kind of doing tech consultant, messing around. And he was in Hawaii, and his cousin kept butchering the word aloha and kept saying Aloha. And as a joke, my co-founder, said, "All right, I'm going to name the company after your mistake," just as a little prod at him, just to play a little fun, practical joke. And one thing led to another. And the company, Aloa, as it is today, kind of started to take off, and we were able to actually establish the service of what we were doing. And we thought about changing the name, but ultimately we just decided it's a wonderful story, and so we kept the name. It's named after that blunder of my co-founder's cousin, and to this day he refuses to wear any Aloa gear as a stand of protest against us using his mistake as our name.
Love it. All right. So I've got a ton of stories where I've outsourced software development and I've come back with some crazy blunders. Why is it important today to understand the benefits for a company? I'm going to step back a little bit. Who's your primary clients, right? If you were to look for who's your sweet spot client? I'm in this boat. Is it the guy that says, I have an MVP that's doing kind of well and I want to convert that to a coded solution? Or I'm scratching my head. I've got this really great idea and I've raised some capital and I want to execute it. Who is that? Who do you support the best?
Yeah. So our clients really do span a decent range. So it's everywhere from the solopreneur, non-technical bootstrapped founder who is walking into a room that have no experience or idea what they're doing. This is their first time, all the way to more mature Series B, C startups that have an in-house team working with a CTO who needs to supplement the development of the in-house team. And so when thinking about that, right, those are like two very different scenarios. And that kind of goes back to, what I was mentioning before. You need to view it as a tool, not a solution, right? A sword, you can use a sword to spread butter on a piece of toast.
Right.
You could. It's a pretty risky way to do it because if you mess up, you're chopping your finger off. But you could theoretically get it done. And so think of outsourcing the same way, right? If you approach outsourcing as if you're a Series B startup that's looking for staff augmentation, and you're really an early stage non-technical founder building their MVP, you're going to have a horrible experience because you're not approaching it properly. Everyone, even the large companies outsource. The enterprise level companies, they outsource. They don't tell you they do, but they use Deloitte, Accenture, IBM to facilitate that relationship. And they pay these companies millions of dollars a year to facilitate these relationships because they know how difficult the process is and how many variables there are that need to be managed to ensure that things go smoothly. And startups don't have that luxury. And so that's really kind of what we're looking at is saying, okay, we're going to take that infrastructure, that global infrastructure, that kind of governance, so to speak, and we're going to build in process and automation to the point where we're going to let tools and processes and automation fuel the business. So companies of any size can achieve that same type of efficiency, same type of oversight, that same type of management without having to pay someone millions of dollars and still outsource and have that predictability. And so that's why there's so much customization to our process and why our process is more thought of as an umbrella where we have multiple firms in our network because different firms are good at different things. With each client, we're going to do an assessment where we're going to ask questions beyond just what are you looking to build. The analogy I love to give, again, going back to architecture, if you think of coding as building a house, imagine you go to an architect and say, hey, architect, you know how to build houses with brick and wood. I need you to build me a bridge also with brick and wood. It's like, great, they can do it. They're an architect, but they're used to building houses, not bridges. Two very different things. So we'll do an assessment, gather information beyond just what tech stack do you need, and place you to the right team. We'll build out your custom development strategies. That way, the team you're going to be working with is aligned with what you need as a team. You're not being forced into the environment of the developers that you're working with. And then conduct those performance reviews to ensure you have that predictability throughout the process. And kind of different other facets and processes to help be preventative, to really give entrepreneurs, startups, companies, enterprise, whoever it be, a more data-backed, predictable experience in outsourcing their software.
Okay. So does it really matter if you need software developed, Aloa is a potential partner. And what your differentiator is you've created a network of offshore developers that you personally travel the world, meet with these teams. I'm assuming you're making sure that they're ethically sourced humans, right? That these aren't sweatshops, that they're being treated very well. That's a huge concern of mine personally throughout the world.
Yeah. So
helping the world be a better place
for sure.
Right?
For sure. So our vetting process, we have a decently proprietary process of how we're kind of going about the actual vetting. We vetted through thousands and thousands of firms. We've only accepted 12 so far to be within our network. And a few things that we do. The first is we're going to vet the leadership. The reason we're going to vet the leadership is because we want to build relationships that scale, that grow. And so if we don't align with how an individual is running their company, we're not going to align with them being part of our network because that's not sustainable. And so part of that questioning and vetting goes into how do you treat your employees? What's their day like? Do you give them time off? Do they have benefits? And if you look at some of our partners, like one of our partners, their team is required to take a 2-hour lunch break, like 2 hours during the day, go do whatever you want, go have lunch, go work out. And that's the process, to make sure that they have, work-life balance and stay motivated to get really good work done every day.
Right.
Other, firms in our network have leadership training programs internally where they're going to be, doing that type of education and things like that. So it's really about making sure that, totally it's scalable, it's proper, but really thinking about just humanity as a whole and really trying to reshape the image of what software outsourcing is. It definitely has a reputation today of you're taking advantage of people, when in reality, that's not really what it's about. It's about creating a global working community. Right. It's just working with people around the world. And just because you're a developer not in America doesn't mean you're not a good developer. There's great developers around the world, and you should be able to work with developers around the world in an efficient way.
Right. My experience with outsourcing development is you're giving people, in a lot of ways, the ability to get themselves out of a situation that they're currently in. Right. They've worked hard. They've got the education to do this work, and the rates that they're getting for this programming work in their hometowns is really good money. Right. And then they're helping their families and they're educating more people and they're growing their entire community with this stuff. So I really think that the software development world, is going to help a lot of second, third world countries get to the point where they are self-sustaining, and hopefully we get, everybody in the planet's got food, and hopefully AI is a giant piece of figuring that out for us. Right. I hope that this AI movement is going to be used for good and not evil, although I think it's going to be used for both.
Me too.
And the evil, I think, is going to be more prominent than the good, unfortunately. So I think it's our job to keep these narratives going and talking about these things, about how this AI can be. And it can also be wildly powerful. So I love that.
Absolutely.
What's one, everybody's got a crazy software development mishap. What's one that you have? Like a big one cost you guys a lot of money on going back and redeveloping because most of mine were miscommunications.
Yeah. So, I mean, miscommunication is really going to be a huge reason why you're going to have most of them. There was one time we had a partner firm they were doing some work for us, and because we'll use our own partners, our own network to do our own own development for our own tools as well. And they wrote the entire code base in the wrong language, and that for us, it was a little shocking. We were a little taken back, but the big learning that we had from that was how did we miss? How did we go as long as we did without catching that? And what we realized was that, we learn from it, right? It's take a failure isn't a failure as long as you learn something from it. And so the way we looked at it, this was earlier on for us. The way we looked at it was it was a really, really expensive learning opportunity. And, but the beauty of how we've kind of structured our network and our partners, we kind of, you have group purchasing power going through Aloa. So we send a decent amount of volume of business to all of our partners, and we don't charge them anything to be part of our network. They're part of our network because of the quality of service. And when we account for that much of their stream, we send out quarterly report cards. So every quarter we're sending out a quarterly report card, internal report card of their rank within our partner network. And the performance reviews influence that rank. And every single project influences the performance review by one. So whether you're a $5,000 project or a $250,000 project, you're having equal impact on that performance report. And so these firms, you have that added incentive. If you're going to outsource through Aloa, you're not just one company outsourcing with this one firm. You're Aloa outsourcing with them. And so if there's a mistake on you, they recognize that as a potential mishap on all of their future business. And so what we basically did, you just go back to the firm and you say, okay, listen, here's what's going to happen. There's a few options we can take here. Step number one, you rewrite the code in the proper language as per the contract. Option number two, you refund the project entirely. Option number three, Aloa will front all of the costs and you'll be kicked out of our partner because that's not the type of firm that we want to be working with, nor a firm that we want to introduce to our client. And so, take it in stride. It's just about, learning from it and letting it influence.
So the audience knows if they're not technical, like if you were to write it in PHP and MySQL or MariaDB, your hosting costs, your software costs are nothing. But if you were to go to Microsoft, ASP, and MS SQL, you're going to have a couple $1,000 a year expense. But if you went all the way to Oracle, man, that could be $100,000 additional expense if they put it in the wrong database structure or whatever. So those languages can make gigantic swings in your cost moving forward, and not knowing that up front is, pretty scary stuff. For me, the number one rule that I've made for whenever we're talking with outsourced developers or people from a different language is try your best to remove all slang from any conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Words like, are we on the same page? Do we understand? Like, those are not good slang words. You got to get rid of this talk. Whenever you're dealing with two people from different language sets, they do not understand each other's slang at all, generally, from my experience.
Yep.
That's where 90% of my problems have come from using slang terminology when talking with people. It took me a long time to figure that out, and thousands and thousands of dollars. So it is a wild thing. If somebody wanted to work with you and your team, how would they find out more information about you and your team and what the onboarding process would be?
Yeah, so they can navigate to our website, aloa.co, aloa.co. And on our site, you can fill out a form. It's basically just like an onboarding form where we then get that information. Someone on our team will then reach out to you and kind of goes from there. So right when you fill out a form with us and reach out to us, we find a time, jump on a call with you, an account executive on our side. We'll jump on that call. And basically what we do on that first call is just a discovery, right? We're going to do an assessment. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to learn about you, figure out first and foremost, should you be outsourcing? Because there are many times where we'll get someone in the door, say, you should not spend a penny with us. You need to do X, Y, Z instead. Come back to us when blank.
Right.
So first we'll do an assessment, make sure that, okay, yeah, we're actually the right fit. Outsourcing is actually the right fit for you. And then if it is, we'll, understand what those variables are, finish up that placement assessment and kind of start that process of making sure we match you the right team, build out those proper strategies, get all the infrastructure in place, and put you in a nice, data backed, predictable journey.
Wonderful. I love it. I think it's an important service. I think people are going to be, as the internet continues to mature, I am super excited about all the business that are going to start up and the entrepreneurs that have new opportunities, right? When I was younger, to start a company was, at least $5,000 or $10,000 is what you had to come up with. And that was, beg, borrow, and steal almost to come up with that cash to get the first one started. But today, a couple $100, you can get started and you can have, domain name LLC, and you can start kind of navigating through and, selling your brand of t-shirts or whatever you want to do in the future. And I love it. I think it lowers the barrier to entry for so many people to do cool and exciting stuff. So thank you for what you're doing for the world.
Absolutely.
It's important work. And I love any time that somebody
Thanks.
can get out of the daily and then just do what they love. And you recognize that with early depression and you said, hey, I'm not going to deal with this stuff. So that's awesome
For
stuff.
sure.
I appreciate it. Do you have time for a random pod deck question?
Yes, I love it. Hit me.
All right. We'll see. This is a new gimmick that we're doing. Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
I most overuse. I've been noticing I've been overusing the word wonderful. I think that's like a good one to overuse.
It is.
But yeah, it's a wonderful one to overuse. But I'm using it nonstop.
Yes.
And I feel like the more I use it, the more I integrate it in everything I say. But I think I'm going to keep doing it.
I think if you're going to overuse a phrase or word, a positive aspiration would be good. Mine is super excited. I use that too much. I'm always super excited about stuff.
Love that.
And I need to come down to reality and just live with the rest of the world sometimes. So thank you for your time today, David. I had such a great time talking with you today. Anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, me as well. Thank you. No, just innovate freely. Go pursue your passions. That's what life's about, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. Get to work.